honestly, I've completely transformed myself. You know, physically, obviously, but also spiritually.
Does that mean that you can't turn into the Abomination anymore, or you won't?
No, it means that I choose not to.
Welcome back to WD Magiccast for the week of August 28th, 2022. This is episode 193, WD Magiccast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. In this week's show, Matthew Leonard again joins me to discuss episode 2 of She-Hulk. Plus, we discuss some other things about Marvel, She-Hulk, and things that affect the world. Also, I did do a survey this week. I put a survey out there to just get the feel of what are your thoughts regarding the new Walt edition of Enchantment at Walt Disney World. In case if you aren't aware, Enchantment's a nighttime show, fireworks show that's projected on the castle and at the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World, and it was representative of the 50th anniversary. It was created for the 50th anniversary, but lacked anything regarding the parks. It was more just a overall Disney thing, nothing specifically for the 50th. So they have now added a intro part of Walt and Mickey talking about the Florida Project and some different things like that, making it more geared towards the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. And your choices were, and this was only on Twitter, so I apologize to anyone on the Facebook end, but this was just on Twitter. The choices were, it's about time, I'm okay with it, indifferent to it, and it wasn't needed. 33% of you said, I'm okay with it. And 67% of you said, it's about time. And I agree with you there. It was about time that was done. I don't understand why it wasn't there in the first place. Maybe that's just me. But I don't understand why Walt wasn't in this show to begin with. He was in Epcot Forever. You had Walt there. But when it came to Enchantment, about the show created for the 50th anniversary, you didn't have Walt involved. You didn't have anything really about the park there. And now it's there. Great. Can't wait to see it when I go there next. And on that note, we'll be back after these words from our friends and sponsors.
Hi Disney Marvels fans, my name's Tash and my BFF Mercedes and I make a weekly podcast dedicated to all things Disney. From music, movies and food and parks to fun weekly challenges, we discuss it all over at Chat Disney. You can find us on Instagram at Chat Disney or Twitter at Chat Disney UK. We release weekly episodes every Monday morning, which can be found on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. Bye for now.
And now, on with the show.
Last week on the WD Magiccast, you were all subjected to the worst introduction this show has ever had. And I'm sorry to say that things have not improved for the WD Magiccast. However, things have improved for the She-Hulk TV series. So here to discuss the improved She-Hulk TV series and the failing introductions of the WD Magiccast, I am here, Mr. Matthew Leonard, joining your usual host, Mr. Matthew Graken. Matthew, welcome for having me back to the program.
Why, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you back on my program.
It's a pleasure to be introducing you while you have me back on the program.
It's a pleasure to be introduced by you on my show, to be introduced by you on Yes.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be confusing you while I do the introduction to your program that you've invited me on to be on again on this program. And
Indubitably.
scene. Right. Okay. Good.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Chris. You know, I think we've talked about this before, but that is actually never. We've talked about this before. That is
Yes,
never.
that's
actually
Jack
said.
Benny.
That's Jack Benny. That is not Gracie Allen. In fact, I feel like we had that conversation recently. We had that on the.
I want to say it wasn't that long ago. Don't ask me which episode.
I literally within the last month, you and I have had this conversation about Gracie Allen. But I feel like it wasn't. What was the last one we did with everybody?
Ms. Marv.
Because I feel like at least Isaac was there, and maybe Dave.
I think that was.
Dave
that
might
the Ms. Marvel wrap up.
No, I don't think I ever talked about Ms. Marvel with you.
Then it was. Yeah, I know what it was. Kenobi.
Kenobi, yeah.
It had to been Kenobi then.
I think so.
That would have been June.
Well, now that we've screwed up the introduction and talked about something other than She-Hulk, how about we talk about She-Hulk?
Let's talk about She-Hulk.
Yeah.
So now we're 2 episodes in.
We are 2 episodes in. What did you think of it this week?
You got a little more flavor of Tatiana, her adversary, and they're making her a superpower influencer, which has an interesting ring to it.
Yeah.
You get introduced to Jennifer's family. And
featuring, as we talked about, as I texted you this morning, cousin Larry Appleton from Rangers. I was so excited to see him. Like, it's cousin Larry. The great Mark Lynn Baker, who is wonderful in anything he does. I saw him on Broadway 26 years ago in Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Oh, so he wasn't dead then?
No, he wasn't dead then. He's still not dead. He was inside. That's an inside joke between the two of us, folks.
I think we covered that at some point too, but yes.
I think we might have. But no, Mark Lynn Baker played Hysterium opposite Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella in Funny Thing Happened, and he was brilliant. He was born for the role of Hysterium. He was so funny.
I have to pull out my playbill because I saw the end of Nathan's run, one of his last performances. So I wonder if he was there too.
I think he might have been. He did. He was on Broadway for quite a while. He's a mostly theater guy. He did back in the early 2000s. He did a production of Frog and Toad, and I like Frog and Toad are friends. I think like just off Broadway, and it was one of those things I heard about. I was like, oh, I would love to get to see that because I loved the Frog and Toad books when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, they're great books.
Yeah. And again, I just love Mark Lynn Baker. He has such a great energy to him with everything that he does, and particularly here, it was so funny when they introduced his character. You know, it's from the back and it's sort of dimly lit, and I heard the voice and went, "That's somebody I know. That's somebody I know from something else. Who is that?" And I thought kind of Henry Winkler at first. I thought, oh, is Henry Winkler in this? And I was like, oh no, it's him. It's Mark Lynn Baker. And cousin Larry. So I was very excited.
Yeah, he just commanded those scenes, and he did such a great job with it.
Yeah, well, he's like I said, he has such a fantastic energy that he commands like every scene that he's in. But
moving forward with a little more of the plot, introduction to the Abomination, which he had a very. I was getting Trevor vibes off of him, how he was talking.
Trevor,
not the Mandalorian from Iron Man 3.
Oh, right. From the I can't think of his Ben Kingsley's character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Kind of like that same type of. No, that's in the past. I've created haikus and made.
Yeah.
They're very much along that line.
I I was glad to see them sort of, because I know it really frustrated me last week when the ship kind of came down and then kind of disappeared, and that was it. And I thought, well, that's really frustrating to see them sort of not let go of that entirely, that Hulk, so they put him in a rocket and they shot him into space.
Yep.
Now they're sending him cheesy movies. The worst that they can find. He'll have to sit and watch them while they monitor his mind.
And to help keep his sanity, he built some robot friends to watch him with. What am I doing here? Who is that? Am I wearing any pants?
No, I was glad to see that and I thought that was kind of well done too, where it's you sort of set up Bruce as like sitting in his little compound, or it looks like he's in his lab, and then the camera pulls back and he's actually in this spaceship going off into space. I thought that was really nice, and I thought, all right, well, it doesn't just it isn't just a one and done. This is actually going to go somewhere, or it hints that it's going to go somewhere, but it also tells you like that's not this story. It sort of excuses it from the story, I guess, is what I want to say.
It also excuses Hulk from the rest of the series.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So you have logically removed him, so that way, you don't have to deal with the potential issues, and then where is he? How come he doesn't get involved? He is not even. He's out of town. He's off the planet. He's off world. So, yeah, that worked out nice. My wife and daughter and I were watching this, and we all came to the same conclusion at the end. Wait, that's it? Because it just went so fast, but and I don't mean it in a bad way. I meant because we enjoyed it so much. And we enjoyed this.
Loki kind of did that same thing, where it was so enjoyable that you got to the end and went, wait, but isn't there more? Shouldn't there be like another 10 minutes? But I think what they set up for the rest of the series, they set up some really good stuff. They set up some good stuff with Abomination. I knew the character of Holden Holloway was coming up. Like I said last week, he's a character from the comics, and I knew that was a character that was going to be in the series. It's a character I've been looking forward to. He's from the Dan Slott comics, and as I've said multiple times, Dan Slott's She-Hulk run is one of my all-time favorite comic book runs. It's such a great series of comics.
Well, he was in the first episode too.
Yeah, he was. He's sort of not shown that much. You don't really realize.
No, he's just briefly there.
But he is there very briefly. Also, the character who shows up, there's a gentleman who comes in with the gift basket. He's a character from the comics, Pug. I was very pleased to see him. I was surprised to see him, but I was very pleased to see him. In the comics, he's a love interest for he's sort of a star-crossed love interest for Jen. He's actually much more. He's actually bulkier. He's almost got more of a Patrick Warburton kind of build to him. But then he also is sort of this. He's very intimidated. They're very respectfully. He's sort of the sort of best friend, and he kind of would like to take it the next step, but he doesn't want to ruin the friendship with what they have, and he's a little intimidated by her, and he's a really, really fun character in the comics. So I was a little disappointed to see him reduced to this, maybe they'll do more with him. But in the comics, he's a bit more the filling the other girl's role, Nikki's role. He's sort of the best friend, and he every time she breaks up with a guy, he's there with the ice cream and the wine, and they sit around and Pete, they like, come on, let's order a pizza and watch some terrible 80s movie, that kind of thing. And he always kind of, and She-Hulk is like, well, why can't I find a guy like you? But she won't actually act on the idea of the two of them together. No, that's ridiculous.
No.
Yeah.
I have a teenage daughter. I understand that all too well. Don't get me started on the personal end. Apparently in this episode there was another one of those QR codes like they did in Moon Knight that you could get to a you remember in Moon Knight there was several times that there was a QR code in the background.
I missed that. No, that never. What? You never. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Well, see, this is what you get for downloading and not listening. Yes. No, there was in Moon Knight they started this thing where there was a few times that there would be a random QR code in a scene.
Okay.
It was an actual QR code. If you scanned it, it would bring you to a Moon Knight comic. Well, apparently in this episode, there's a QR code leading to a free She-Hulk comic. It can be found at the top of the page on the digital viewer Jen is reading, which offers 10 offbeat jobs for a fresh start.
Okay.
That's what the internet's telling me anyway. I have to go back to the Hulk, one of the Hulk parts when they're talking on the phone. You know, she's talking to him about this whole time and trying to get forgiveness, but she's working through it in her own mind, and Hulk keeps trying to tell her the whole time it's fine, and she keeps cutting him off. And the writing in this I thought was genius, where it says, where Hulk goes, "No, literally, I was a different person back then."
Yeah.
Referring to it was a different actor.
The fact that he was at Norton back then.
Yeah. So I love that line. Yeah, so a number of different references of things going on. Someone said that the timeline was getting a little wonky with what was going on in this. But I don't see the issue myself, at least not yet, with Abomination. The timing that, okay, they just found out about him escaping and going to the fights that happened in Shang-Chi.
Right.
I don't see how time-wise that messes things up, unless if I'm missing something here.
I don't know. I have to confess, I still haven't seen Shang-Chi.
Oh, Shang-Chi was fun.
That's what I've heard.
Shang-Chi was nice. It's better than some of the more recent ones. Or recent one. Which, speaking of Thor, September 8th comes to Disney Plus.
Okay.
So
I will make sure to be out of town that day.
Yes. Well, no, it'll be a number of other things. They have the making of Kenobi comes out that day too.
Good to know.
And there's some other stuff I just haven't paid enough attention to yet. It's Disney Plus Day this year.
Right.
So, and it hit on a low note. They're putting Thor on there.
I'm hoping that Disney Plus Day will get some sort of I'd like a trailer for the new Muppet series.
I would love that.
I know they've finished production on it.
Yeah, but there's no official time and date for that. I'm wondering if we hear that either Disney Plus Day or at D23. I'm hoping one of those we get.
Oh, right, because the Muppets are going to be at D23.
So, ooh. What if there's a concert?
That'd be cool.
That would be nice. Anyway, back to She-Hulk. Yeah, I all in all, they're starting to set up plots. They're starting to set up different things. I'm sure Jennifer Walters crossing the yellow line and all the alarms going off is a Tchaikovsky's gun situation where that's gonna play into something. Into play. Yeah. Why would you show that to us?
Tchaikovsky's gun?
Chekhov's gun. Sorry.
Chekhov's gun, yes. I thought you said Tchaikovsky's gun.
I did. It's been a long week. Sorry, I got my composer and my
and your Russian navigator of the Starship Enterprise.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, so that's gotta be coming back into play at some point somehow. Um, I just thought this was a very smooth episode. Where last one I thought, okay, they left some holes and some other things. I think we got a nice bit of introduction to the rest of the supporting cast finally.
Yeah. I was a little bit, well, again, this is coming back from, and I know there is one more character still to go who we'll meet. I'm not going to say anything. But I've been a little disappointed that, again, in the comics, the law office, the superhuman law office, is a bit more fantastic, which I'm hoping we'll see is maybe more of when we go along. But I was a little like that. Just throw something in there, something a little more. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Just
more pizzazz.
Yeah, that's just something a little more. I wanted to say, I don't know if imaginative is the right word for it, but just something to make it a little bit. It was a law office. It was a law office. It was any law office. There was nothing super about it at all, other than She-Hulk walking through, which I sort of understand doing it that way. But at the same time, I kind of also wanted to see it be just a little bit more. There are some stuff. There are some fun characters that they could pull from the comics and put in. So I'm kind of hoping we'll see them. There's still room for some surprises, so we'll see.
Well, we figure it's the early days.
Yeah.
So that is something that they could always build into.
Yeah, I think I'm actually sitting here. I've got my copy of the trade paperback and I'm trying to remember what it's like when she first, how established is the law office when she starts with them. And my memory is that they're actually a bit more. It's a startup, but she's not the first one in the door. Whereas this, I think she is the first one.
She's literally the first one. Her and Pug.
Right.
I mean, I thought they, again, maybe slightly underutilized her friend.
Right.
Nikki could have been a little more. But what did you think besides her father? What did you think of the rest of the family?
Rest of the family was fun. I was a little distracted by the presence of her father. Yeah. Sorry, now I'm distracted by a comic book.
That's right.
No, I thought they were fun. I think it's a nice bit of comic relief, which is, it's a comedy show. So
yeah, it's a comedy show, and it's got that lighthearted, more sitcom feel to it, and
right.
I think it's so far playing out well.
Right.
But like I said, particularly this episode, I thought they did a nice job with it, moving the things forward. The family, again, another nice father-daughter moment where her dad's like, "Oh, I need your help with something in the garage." "Okay, Dad, what do you want?" "No, I just wanted to come get you out of here to see how you are doing."
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch and a nice moment.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the scene at the end where he's making her carry 5-6 water jugs in.
Right.
Keeping with the Marvel tradition, there is an after credit scene for those who haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, you better hurry up and see it. Because you got one more day until the next one comes out.
Yeah, see, actually, I'm looking through in the comics. He actually does not want She-Hulk. Right, I'm remembering this now. He does not want She-Hulk. The problem is that She-Hulk is she's appearing more and more in court, or she's been in court almost exclusively as She-Hulk. And because of her showboating, Holloway gets her fired. That plays out the same. Holloway gets her fired, and he hires her, but then he says, "I don't want She-Hulk. I want Jen." And they're dealing with all of these superhumans, and she has to sort of. We currently represent a number of territorial disputes from undersea and to underground, and even in the air. Right. So that's. So that he's she sort of has to walk this line between being Jen and then, because there are all these other superhumans around, she ends up turning into She-Hulk when she's almost expressly forbidden from becoming She-Hulk, or she's told not to become She-Hulk. That's how it is in the comics anyway. Obviously,
so it's completely the reverse. And
obviously, you need to reverse that here. Otherwise, it would be kind of pointless. We wouldn't have much of a show.
No. Which it's an interesting twist, and I like how she points out that it's like, I did the good thing. I saved these people from getting a death thrown in their face, so I get fired.
Yeah.
So I the point that she's pointing this stuff out, and I like the part where she's busy talking to us, that she's not paying attention to what's actually happening
in the
world.
Yeah.
So, all just, like I said, all just nice little moments.
I feel like I had more things that I wanted to say about this week's episode, and I'm just, now that I'm here on the show, I can't remember what any of them are.
Oh, what'd you think of the Abomination?
Tim Roth is starting to show his age. 10 years, he's aged a lot.
Yeah.
But no, it was. I thought it was a fun character, and I liked the kind of address that he addressed the change in the characters, or the change in Bruce Banner's. I thought it was a nice scene with him.
Yeah, he did a good job. He did a nice job the way that he went about everything. And just how cool and calm and collected he is.
Yeah. He's just got this weird vibe about what's going on. Like you almost think that he has more knowledge than he's letting on. Right. It reminded me a little bit of the scene in Avengers between Loki and Natasha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how his character is going to play out in the end, which end he's going to end up on.
Right.
So we shall see. Because, I know there's some other characters that come into play that they've shown in the trailers that are linked to this character. So we'll see. We shall see. We have 9 episodes. We have 7 more left.
Yep.
We still got some time. Oh no! Like I said, I found this one very enjoyable, and I'm continuing to look forward to what's next and what's next.
Right.
On that note, anything more that you want to add about this episode?
I feel like I had a whole bunch. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And now that I'm here, I didn't make any notes for myself, and I regret that. And now I got nothing.
That's right. Maybe it'll come to you.
Maybe it will.
But and something else that we were discussing afterwards.
Last
Last week we discussed about it.
Last week, after we finished recording the show, was when we had the good conversation.
We saved the good conversation for after the recording.
So I think this week we're going to finish this recording, and then I'm going to remember everything I wanted to talk about, and we'll start talking again. But we had a really good conversation last week after the show. You remember it, and I don't.
And you said we needed to do this during the show. So here we'll do it during the show while you don't remember it. We were talking about some of the critics saying about how this She-Hulk is, Disney's making things progressive or woke or whatever regarding, and I couldn't figure it out. So I asked you about, well, what is so quote unquote woke about She-Hulk, because I'm not seeing it.
Right.
And the only thing we could come about, and this is going back to some of the other things we did discuss about, like, it happened to Ms. Marvel, it happened on in Kenobi, a powerful female character being portrayed on a TV show. And we both pointed out that is not unusual. That's not. They didn't change the character of She-Hulk for the She-Hulk TV show.
Right. Right. Now I remember. That was the point that you made to me last week, and it was a really good point. But go ahead and finish making that point now that I've interrupted it. That
in the 70s or 80s when She-Hulk came out, right, that's how the character was back then, 30, 40 years ago.
Right. She-Hulk was always a strong character.
So that's not. We've kind of hit on this point several times, and I almost feel like we're being a broken record every time we bring it up. But it there's a good reason to keep bringing it up, that this is stuff that Marvel has done throughout their history of being progressive and forward thinking regarding gender, age, nationality, whatever, to include people of different color, different race, different gender, different etc. So when they created the character of She-Hulk in 70, 80, 79, 80
70 something.
Yeah, I don't have the exact date here. But they made her that strong character back then. They didn't change the character to fit modern day thinking in 2022. This is something that they started a long time ago.
It was actually 1980 was the first issue of Savage She-Hulk #1.
Really? Because I have 1979 as Savage She-Hulk #1.
Regardless, you are correct that this was kind of how the character has always been. Yeah. It's not like there's the impetus there is, Disney's being woke. No, Marvel has always been awake in terms of representativeness, and I think the story that I told that you and I talked about last week after the show, if you go back to the earliest Fantastic Four comics, there's a letter to the editor, or a letter to Marvel, saying they need to eliminate the character of the Invisible Woman because she doesn't contribute anything to the team. There was one person wrote it, and it's literally like issue 7 or 8 of the original Fantastic Four comics. Probably, I don't even think it's that far in. I think it's only like issue 3 or 4 or something like that, where they got this letter saying, she's a terrible character. She doesn't contribute anything to the team. She doesn't do anything. You should get rid of this character. And Stan addressed it in a soapbox even then, addressed it within the letters column, and then literally, I think it's the next Fantastic Four issue, or maybe the next 1 or 2 issues after that, there's a storyline where it literally opens with the Fantastic Four Reed and Sue and Johnny and Ben, and they're sitting in the kitchen at the Fantastic Four headquarters, or in the Baxter building. And Willie Lumpkin comes in with the mailbag, and he throws the mail. He says, "Oh, there's a letter for you, Mr. Richards," and or "There's a letter for you, Miss Storm," and it's this piece of hate mail, and it's literally like the guy's letter from the month or two beforehand, saying, you should quit the team. You don't do anything. You don't contribute anything. And the Fantastic Four, Reed and of course it hurts Sue, and it upsets her, and Reed and Johnny and Ben say, no. Remember when we faced the Skrulls and you did this and you rescued us? And then we faced Doctor Doom, and it's because of you that we were able to do that. And then we faced Namor, and because you did this, we did that. And so, yes, you are part of the team. They addressed it. And representation and strong female characters have always been a part of it. And I know that there's also, you go back to those comics, there's the other half of that coin is representation was always a big part of Marvel. There was also a lot of work to be done, because Reed's attitude towards his girlfriend or towards his wife at the time were not always the best. And there are things with She-Hulk that I can point to, and actually, She-Hulk used to sort of poke fun at the fact that the fans were sort of looking for the comic to be sort of sultry. They because she was this 7-foot glamazon, this is what She-Hulk should be. And every time it sort of started to turn that way, she would break the fourth wall and be like, this is really disgusting and beneath all of us. Why I'm not gonna do prance around in a bikini and do this just for your entertainment. I've got a story I've got to go be a part of, or So representation has always been a thing, and I don't understand people who I just don't get it. And you and I talked about this. I don't understand people who complain about representation in movies or TV shows, or people who complain about something being woke. I don't know. I always say I'd rather be woke than asleep. But that's just. And I said this a couple months to you, that I wasn't going to get political on this show anymore, and I find myself getting more and more political every time we do this show.
Stop it!
I'll stop.
I tried not to make it political.
It's not being political. But you were the one who brought this up.
I did bring it up. But let me cap it off with 2 points on this.
Okay.
Again, I know that I've mentioned this before, and I'm repeating myself, that Black Panther is another prime example.
Yeah.
The first black superhero character. Despite the name, he actually came out before the Black Panther movement even started. He's been a character that's been around, and again, bringing representation, bringing a beacon for people to look forward to. But even in my own writings, and I know I bring it up every so often, many of the books that I've written, that I always use a diverse palette of characters.
Yeah.
To represent people and characters and stuff. That's just how I always wanted to write, is just to show the inclusive world. Like, and this is not Disney, but this is, it's more this is how I came about when I was doing the writing, was Roddenberry.
Yeah. Star Trek.
Yep. He was very inclusive in what he wanted to portray and how he wanted to show the world. And that's how, whenever I did my writing, did the same thing. I wanted to show this vast cast of characters of all sorts, with different background stories and different ethnicities, and people in different powers and positions, and just paint with a broad palette. And to get that type of stuff, and something else that we mentioned, as long as it's not being like shoved down your throat and beating you over the head, there should be no problems with it, because it is just, if you look throughout the world, you will find examples of these type of people around.
Yeah,
it's not that they're not there. We just sometimes don't see them, and shows like this bring them more to light. in a good way. And
Right.
like I said, they're not beating you over the head with it. There are some shows out there that will take the stance of, we are going to show you a example A, whatever that may be, but we're going to make it so blatant obvious that we're showing it to you, and showing it to a way that you need to be uh accepting of it, that we are going to beat you over the head with it. And that's not the way to do it. I think Marvel is going
And
about it in a way.
And yet, well, there's a bit of a counterpoint there, and that because you say that, but also, I mean, Star Trek was a show that very much was like, this is the soapbox, and we are going to stand on it, and
Sure.
they did on a regular basis. I think Star Trek, particularly the original series, through the Next Generation, and even into Deep Space Nine, that show was always a megaphone. But I also understand what you're saying about like not trying to, because this is something you and I talked about, was that Marvel has kind of done it in this way. You and I also talked about Star Wars and the more recent Star Wars movies, and it was kind of it bothered me, and I am all for, again, I'm all for representation in movies. I like I want to see characters. I want to see strong Latina characters, strong Black characters, strong female characters, strong whatever. But when they did the more recent the sequel movies with Rey and Poe and Finn, I felt very much like the casting was a series of check boxes.
Right.
We have a strong female lead, check. We've got a Latino male, check. We've got a Black male, check. We've got an Asian female, check. And as opposed to just having those characters feel a bit more organic. Right. Whereas Marvel has kind of done it in this way, that those characters are organic, and the fact that Rhodey is Black, or that Sam Wilson is Black, or it comes into it. You have a place you can go to with it, but that's not what the character is.
Correct.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
It doesn't. It's who the character is. It doesn't define the character.
Right. And yet, as you saw with the series,
Falcon Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier. The fact that Sam was Black, you had a place you could go to, and you could tell an interesting story that way. Yeah.
Well, right, and then you could write the story around it and give more of a different points of view. And I think that show did a lot of that, or it was showing, because you had, at one point, you had the two Black characters in it. You had the former guy. I'm blanking on the actor's name, and I really enjoy his work. And he was in Alias, but he was the soldier from the army used in the past and abused him. And he's saying, no respecting Black man would ever pick up that shield. And here's Sam going, but if I don't pick up that shield, what am I saying to the future? It's kind of, you kind of had the two different angles on all that. And it's, again, Sam taking the road of, the shield doesn't define me. I define what the shield means.
What the shield is.
So, yeah, so again, but that's it's not making the character isn't that.
Right.
It's part of it is what the character gets involved in, but it's not defining the character. So yeah, I think that's more of what I mean by that. I don't do good with political. I'm sorry. That's why I don't have a political podcast.
And yet we find ourselves discussing being political on the show fairly regularly.
Well, sometimes these things come in there.
I think it's good. I think this is why representation is important, is because it does get us having these conversations. It does get us talking about these things.
I mean,
I loved Ms. I said earlier, you didn't have me on. You and I never really talked about Ms. Marvel.
No.
Or at least
tell us about your thoughts on Ms. Marvel.
You and I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic, and it really was eye-opening to a lot of things. And this was another thing I said to you off camera, but I'll say it again. I always complained about having to, I'm so tired of Marvel movies these days because I always feel like I have to do my homework. And here was Miss Marvel, and there was this moment where I went, oh, there is homework that I have to do here, but it's not going back and watching these 20 other Marvel movies. This is an actual history lesson that I need to pick up and read and learn something about and open my brain up. And I was very excited by that with Ms. Marvel, and I'm so glad they did that series the way it was. And the other thing that I was also very pleased with on Ms. Marvel was the reactions to it, because I was on at the beginning of the summer. You had me on. We were talking about Kenobi, and we talked about the reactions to Moses Ingram. And I think we were literally like a week out from Ms. Marvel premiering. And you and I were talking about Moses Ingram, and I might have even said this at the time, but I don't remember if I actually said it or if I just sort of thought it in my head. I thought, well, Ms. Marvel is coming out, and this poor kid is going to get the same treatment that Moses Ingram was receiving at the time. And I was very pleased that I never, at least I'm speaking from a position of white privilege, there didn't seem to be as much of that, or there didn't seem to be any of that with her. There wasn't anything directed with her. I saw a couple of people who said, this just series, it skews a little younger. It's not quite for me. It's really more
on how the series was written.
Right, but nothing was ever aimed at her or at her ethnicity or anything like that. And actually, I've seen a handful of interviews with her, and I know I've said this on the show, and she's charming.
Oh,
she's
she is
really,
fantastic.
really charming and funny, and I want to see, not only do I want to see more of Ms. Marvel because of her, I want to see more of her. I want to see her, what does she do next? Because I think she's clearly got a good sense of humor, and a good sense of comedy, and I'm really excited to see what she as an actress, where her path as an actress goes. I hope she's got a long future ahead of her, both with and away from Marvel.
I don't think it has anything to do with white privilege. I just don't remember seeing anything in the news come up about
right.
Islam, Mansley. I'm getting my actresses mixed up. But the Ms. Marvel actress getting attacked or anything coming out about people going after her. She is very charming. I did try to get her on the show. Unfortunately, her schedule just didn't allow it. But I did hear some interviews myself of her. She embodies her character, kind of like how Robert Downey Jr. embodies Iron Man because of their unfortunate past. Lines up here in a more positive light. She is that fangirl character that Ms. Marvel is. Kamala Khan is, and they're just very similar in that aspect. She embodies her character and she plays it off very well.
Right.
I am very excited to see where she goes from there. I've even seen her birthday was just recently, and Brie Larson posted out a tweet wishing her a happy birthday, and just kind of in this super buddy kind of way.
Right.
It just my Broadway quoting best bud friend. It's just this really cute, just really special little moment that Brie Larson put out there for her Marvel's co-star. So this is a character then again that I was excited for. I enjoyed the series. I didn't know what to expect from the series, and by the end, I really enjoyed what I got. I understand how the first couple of episodes turned some people off, but it did swing differently as it moved along. And to the end, it was a fun series introducing her character, and I think she will be a lot of fun to watch in the cinemas next year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's weird that people say things like that. And oh, I wanted to get back to the Star Wars that I was going to say in The Last Jedi. Now,
Okay.
my daughter is Asian. So when I found, not only is she Asian, she's Vietnamese. And when I found out that there was a character in the movie, two characters actually, that were both Vietnamese in this movie, I got excited for that. Because then my daughter can see someone in Star Wars that is just like her. So,
Right.
she has, in case if you guys don't, if people listening don't know, my daughter's name is Paige, and the characters in the movie's name is Paige. So she has the Paige action figure, the Paige pop figure. She has all the Paige's stuff, a lot of the Paige merchandise in her room because she's in Star Wars. Unfortunately, her character doesn't make it through much of the movie, but she's in. She is in the movie. So, yeah, it's the world is a lot bigger now than it was many years ago, or we are realizing it's a lot bigger now than we realized it was many years ago. Which is to say is 100, even 60 years ago. And we should not be afraid that this world is a bigger place, and that America being a place where people of all different sorts cohabitate.
I think the fact that we are a place of all different sorts who cohabitate is what makes America great.
Thank you.
No problem.
And we should be mindful of remembering that.
And all these things a lot of these pop culture things that we talk about, a lot of the creators of these pop culture things, Stan Lee knew that, Jim Henson knew that, Gene Roddenberry knew that, I think George Lucas knew that, I think even Walt Disney knew that.
Let me preface.
And I say that, and then a giant elephant walks into the room. So
yeah, well, he did, but he was also a product of his time. Walt Disney being born in 1901.
Right.
He employed women whenever it wasn't commonplace. Now, was it the standards of that what we expect nowadays? No. But he did certain things that back for that time was very uncommon. The Salus Amigos, Three Caballeros, all that type of stuff was not very popular. It wasn't a common thing back then.
Right.
And he was introducing characters of Spanish or Mexican or different descents back then that other studios weren't doing as much.
Right.
So he's not at the level of Jim Henson and all that, but it also, again,
well, and even Jim, Jim was very aware of the global stage, which was how we ended up with Sesame Street, which is how we ended up with Fraggle Rock. He was aware that he could reach people, that he had an audience around the world. And there was stuff there. Jim was very much about the fact that we are one planet and we are one people. And yet, some of the, at that same time, his team of puppeteers was, was not particularly diverse. It was 6 white guys mostly, and then a handful of white women, and the women had to fight hard for their roles. had to fight very hard for their roles because
one of the women who's standard that they talk about in the Light and Magic series would go back and forth, but she mentioned that she worked for Henson, she worked for Lucas, and Lucas, it wasn't so much of a competition for her.
Right.
That everyone's like, oh, great, what do you have to say? And it's more welcoming of her, where she didn't specifically say what other companies, but you kind of got the reference that at like Henson and some of these other places that it was, oh, well, you're a woman, just
right.
We'll get back to you.
And you look at some of the humor in the Muppet Show, which obviously did some very, very funny things, but then there were also a couple things that you wouldn't do those kinds of characters today.
There's a reason why certain Muppet shows aren't on Disney Plus.
Or there's a reason why most of the reasons episodes aren't on Disney Plus is music issues. But there are reasons why there are the little bumpers in front saying, look, this show is a product of its time. Yes, we know that the humor is dated in this, and I can, the Kenny Rogers episode has that, the Spike Milligan episode will have that, James Coburn will have that, because at the time we just didn't think of it in those terms. Now we do. Now we are aware that, oh, this is, what we do matters,
As a society, we keep learning.
Hank Azaria playing Apu matters.
Yeah. As a society, we're not perfect. We're human, and we keep learning as we keep moving forward. But on the same token, we have to say that we were just saying in this country, we do recognize that, we're learning about all these other people. Unfortunately, there's some countries that you would never be able to get a show like She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, or the like, because you're just not allowed to have that.
Yeah.
So we should be thankful that we get shows like this. And again, it's not something.
And that's your real freedom of speech right there.
Yep. And again, what makes America so great is that we can have shows like this. So I think we exhausted that.
I think we've exhausted a lot of things.
So on that note, thank you again for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for introducing me.
I feel like there was more I wanted to say about She-Hulk episode 2, and I can't remember.
Let's see here. We
talked about Cousin Larry.
Cousin Larry talked about Tatiana. We talked about her getting fired at the bar.
Holden Holloway, Pug.
The popularity of everyone chanting for She-Hulk, and she didn't like the name.
Yeah.
Drinking, and then wherever she goes, switches back to non-She-Hulk form. The metabolism difference.
I was actually just seeing that's actually, well, actually it's funny in the series. I'm talking about the switch in the series. She's She-Hulk, and then she sees that her boss comes in and says, no, I need you to be Jennifer Walters, and she switches, and her metabolism switches, and she's drunk as she's getting fired. In the comics, it's the opposite. It's she's out drinking. Holden Holloway walks in and says, I want to hire you, but I want to hire you as Jen Walters. I need you, and so it's then She-Hulk's been drinking. She changes into Jen Walters, and Jen is completely blitzed out of her mind and passes out on Holden Holloway as she's offered this job. It's a very funny moment it was a very funny moment in the series too.
I enjoyed it in the series. Again, Tatiana Maslin does such a great job playing this character. Yeah. I just absolutely love her playing this. And again, another fantastic casting job by Marvel.
And I'm eager to see episode 3.
I can't wait for episode 3.
Yeah. But again, I do wish, having sat through this episode, I do wish that last week I think last week's episode would have benefited from being able to go. This was a far stronger episode than last week's episode, and I wish when they premiered it, I wish they had done both at the same time. But oh well, I'm not in charge of these things, and I can't go back in time to be in charge of these things.
Why not?
I don't know. But one day
But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. This would have played, if we got 1 and 2 back to back, I think this will play through nicely because one picks up right exactly where the second one ended, so it just will flowed perfectly and worked out well. And I just like I like the zinger at the end, or she calls her boss and say, "Okay, yeah, I'll take the case." You say, "Good, turn on your TV."
Turn on TV.
Like, oh well, I didn't see that coming, or whatever the line was, and then they cut it right there.
Yeah. Now, I see. Spoil this for me a little bit. Do I need to see? I feel like I need to see Shang-Chi now, because isn't that where isn't the thing that he's broken out?
It's brief, but it is. I think it will play I think it will help you. Yes.
Your timeline question from before.
Yeah, I still don't.
This lines up with Shang-Chi more than anything else. That like the first 2 episodes take place.
Supposedly there was a reference to the giant statue in the Indian Ocean, which is from Eternals.
Right.
Again, I'm not seeing the disconnect with the timeline. So, but yeah, Shang-Chi, about a third of the way into the movie.
Because I know Abomination is in Shang-Chi.
Right. He goes into this club. Basically it's a fight club.
Yeah.
And there's Abomination and another character going at each other. And there's a whole bit about that.
Okay.
Which now is completely connected to She-Hulk.
Okay.
So yeah, you did a little bit of homework there. Nothing it's not like having to watch 30 movies to get that. Again, Shang-Chi in some ways is kind of a standalone film in itself as well.
One of these days I'll get around to watching Shang-Chi. One of these days.
The only connection is Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3, there's a connection to Shang-Chi.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
There's a shared character.
Okay.
And I mentioned him already.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were about to say that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
And on
that note,
thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure.
I look forward to introducing another episode of the WD Magic Cast, and maybe doing a better job than I did this week. Thank you for letting me screw up your podcast.
Anytime.
Woohoo!
Thank you again, Matt, for joining us this week and talking about episode 2 of She-Hulk. What do you think of episode She-Hulk or the series so far? Let us know. Join the conversation on our socials. Our main Facebook page is facebook.com/WDMagicCast. On Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, we are at WDMagicCast. You can leave a voice message through the Anchor app and or Anchor.fm website, or record a message electronically on your device and email it to email@wdmagiccast.com, or you can also email us with any questions or suggestions you may have. Linked to all these are in the show notes. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have these these days and how crazy life is going. Back to school is going on. Some of the kids are back to school already. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. But the fact that we get to spend this time together means a lot to me, means a lot to my co-host, to the whole team over here at WD Magiccast. Thank you. It is the least that we can say. Thank you so much. I hate asking for more, but I do. Please leave a rating review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We have all 5-star reviews at the moment. I really truly appreciate it. I never expected that kind of response. Just keep them coming. More 5-star reviews, the better. It helps promote the show. In addition, please share out a link on the social networks. Tag us so we can say thank you. But let people know that you're listening. Let people know where to find us. You can find us just about anywhere. But the more people involved in this Disney family, the better. Walt believed in Big Disney family, and so do I. Don't forget to subscribe to the show as well while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted. And while you're at it, consider becoming a premium subscriber. It really help the show out. You can do this over at anchor.fm/WDMagiccast/support. Or find us on our Patreon page. Again, WD Magiccast. You can also check out the merchandise shop where you can get yourself some cool, fun WD Magiccast stuff. You can links to all these are in the show notes as well. Because remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever you're facing out there, whatever troubles, whatever hard times seems to be coming at you, don't give up. You are special. You are the person who you need to be, who the world needs you to be. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop believing in yourself. Don't ever think you're not worth it. You are special. You are unique. Be your own hero. Never give up. Never give in. And if you need help, there are people out there who you may not know, who may not know you at all. But believe it or not, they'll be willing to help you. Be sure to ask for that help. And on that, I'd like to end this show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. Americans are responsive people, and the ideas, the knowledge, and the emotions that come through the television screen into our living rooms will most certainly shape the course of the future of ourselves and our children. Again, that's from Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everybody, and I'll see you next time.